Hi, Shepherd's Pie. Greetings from the Philippines. I'm back for a coffee and a chat. Going to talk about an emotive subject tonight, the old long-distance relationships, and the biggest mistake that expats make. Now, I've kind of touched on this in some previous videos, but the trouble is, it keeps happening over and over again. I was out last night talking to some friends in a bar, and I've heard it's happened to someone else I know over here. It's the same old story. People meet someone online, they come to the Philippines, it could be Thailand, it could be anywhere. They come over, they get married, they buy land, they build a house, the relationship goes sour, and they end up going back to their home country and they've lost everything. And to me, it's madness. And that's why I'm talking about the subject again on this video now, because the penny just doesn't seem to drop with a lot of people. Now, this video is going to be different again because I'm going to do something that I try not to do. I'm going to give some advice on this because I always caveat my videos with, I'm just going to talk about, this and that. This is just my opinion, take it or leave it, etc. But I am going to try and offer some advice to now. Because to me, I'm kind of doing this video like a, what do they call them? Public safety announcement or something like that. Because, it's not rocket science. But the trouble is, people seem to get blinded by love. Which is understandable. And they're the kind of people I'm talking to. I'm not talking to expats who've travelled around, they've been about a bit, they've lived in a few countries, they've had relationships, etc. I'm talking about the ever-increasing number that you seem to come across, certainly in the Philippines, of lonely guys who are living in the West, who've got online relationships with girlfriends in the Philippines. Long-distance relationships, LDRs. Because I think some of you need to wake up and smell the coffee, for a better expression. Now, I'm not knocking LDRs in any shape or form. Not for me. Never been in one. Well, I have, in the sense that I've met people in countries and I've gone to other countries, so I've been in a long distance ride, but I've never purposely gone online and met someone in another country and then travelled to that country to be with them. So I suppose I have been in long distance relationships. But as I say, I've met someone in like Thailand and I've gone to the UK or I've gone here or whatever, and that's how it's been a long distance. And they've never worked. They've never worked. It hasn't worked for me. And I'm not going to be a guru on relationships here, because as I've said many times in my videos, I've been divorced twice. I've had several long-term relationships over the last 10 years since my last divorce, and none of them have lasted long-term. Longest was 5, one was 3, 6 months. I'm in one now, which is approaching, 7, 8 months. I'm no expert on that. I can't tell you what the right thing to do is, and I'm not going to try to. The only thing I'm going to say to you is slow down. Understand the situation you're in, and don't let your heart lead you. Use your brain too. Because for me, there are certain realities about long distance relationships. And one of them is, the reason you've gone into the relationship, and I'm talking about both of you now, must be because you have perceptions. If you're a guy in America or the UK or whatever, and you've gone looking to meet a partner in the Philippines, then you must have it in your mind that a Filipino is going to be different to someone in your home country. Rightly or wrongly, you have perceptions. I'm guessing. Tell me if I'm wrong. There might be someone out there that isn't like that, but I'm guessing that A, you're lonely, you can't find a relationship in your home country, or you've been in a relationship and that's gone sour, and you have an idea in your head that you can find what you're looking for in the Philippines, for example, and you can find them online. So you've got, certain aspirations, certain, I can't think of the word now, perceptions, of what a relationship with a Filipino will be. Well, they might be accurate, they might be wrong. You could be bang on the money, you could be straight off the mark, but far off the mark. But the point is, the Filipino at the other end, she's going to have expectations too. She's going to have perceptions of what it's like. Otherwise, she wouldn't be looking for a Westerner. So you're both going into this with an idea of what you're looking for, which from the start may not be realistic. But the fact that you've gone into this relationship looking online, as I say, suggests, I didn't explain that very well, did I? But the point is, you've got expectations, both of you have. Now, the nature of relationships, I mean, when you're living with someone, you're with them 24/7, a great portion of the time. So you work out quite quickly what that person is like to live with. Now, if you're online with someone, I don't care if you're talking 3 hours, 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. It's not going to be the same as living together. It's just not. Because it's like anything, like me making these YouTube videos. I can give an impression of what I am that I want you to see. If I don't like what I'm saying, I don't like the video, I can delete it, I can go offline, you know what I mean? You can do that in a long distance relationship. If there's something that I don't want you to know about, if we're in a long distance relationship, I can keep that from you. And vice versa. So that's an issue straight away. It's easy to put on a front for a few hours. It's easy to get carried away and exaggerate and lie in a long distance relationship. A lot easier than it is if you're living together and you're sharing the same space. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second, when I'm saying it's easy to lie or deceive, although they sound as if they're bad things to say, obviously they're bad terms to use. What I'm getting at is it's quite normal to promote yourself in a positive way. To exaggerate. Men exaggerate. I've always said you ask someone how much they earn. The average guy will add 30% onto it. They exaggerate about their popularity and things. So women do as well. So the point is, you're both gonna, I would imagine, promote yourselves in certain ways that aren't going to be the truth. Not necessarily going out to deceive you, Robbie or something like that. We all portray ourselves. We exaggerate and things. That's quite normal. But it's only when you're living together that you'll see the real person. Now, you might be dead honest in your relationship. You might turn around and say, well, I'm honest, I tell her everything and she tells me. And maybe you are. Maybe you are. Maybe you really are. But it doesn't change the fact, although she may seem like your soulmate, and you may seem like her soulmate, it's only when you're living together that the annoying habits will come out. It's only then when you can't, how hard is it to talk to someone for a couple of hours online and say it's all fantastic and then switch it off? It's a different thing when you're living in a house together. You go into another room and they come out and sit next to you. You go somewhere else and they're constantly in your space. Now this might be a dream to you. I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not knocking long distance relationships. What I'm saying is they're not the same as actually living with someone. They can't, by definition. If they were, everyone would have long distance relationships. No one would live together. You know what I mean? It's like, if they were exactly the same, you wouldn't have to buy houses together and move in. I mean, the goal obviously has to be at the end to live together, or what's the point? Unless you're some guy in prison, like doing life, and you've got a pen friend or something like that. I've never understood why people like the prisoners, but there you go. I'm talking about serial killers and things like that. Obviously I understand why you might want to talk to people in prison, like help someone who's lonely, but when you hear about these murderers and that who get all these fan mails and things, you think, God, what the hell's going on? People are weird. Anyway, I've completely digressed from where I was going. The point I'm getting at, without criticising long distance relationships, I'm saying the reality is they don't really count for a lot, in my opinion, until you've actually, that is the real test. It's when you get together and you moved in together. Now, most relationships fail. Don't know what statistics are, but a huge percentage of marriages in every Western country now end up in divorce. And most relationships don't make it to marriage in the first place. So when you get into a relationship, the chances are, the odds are against you. I mean, that's just life. But just think about how much worse you are making those odds, or how much more difficult it is to climb if you are going to a foreign country like the Philippines. You've been let's say you've been in a long distance relationship for a couple of years. You come to the Philippines, you meet the girl of the dreams who you've been talking to. You're now living in the Philippines. You've never been in the Philippines before. You don't know what it's like. You may never have left outside the States before. But you've come over here, you've jumped into a relationship, you're living in a country that you've never lived in before, you've got no friends around you, the only people you know are her friends and her family, you're living in her village or her town. You know, this is huge to uproot and move like that. Now, it can work out for some people. I loved it when I was in Thailand. I was in a similar situation. I moved up to the mountains there. But you're not necessarily me. And I'm not necessarily you. And the point is, when I was in these situations, I never bought land or built houses or thought about getting married or anything like that, because I was looking at it along the lines of, I don't know how it's going to work out. And this is what I'm trying to say to you. This is the point I'm making this video. You know, understand that the odds are against you. I think it's a much better idea. I'm not saying you shouldn't come to the Philippines and meet somebody, but for my money, it's a much better idea to come to the Philippines first, as a single guy. See what it's like living here. Spend a period of time going to other places, you know, trying different towns, different cities, and meet people along the way. And when you find the place that is right for you, you can settle down there. And then start looking for a partner. Now, that to me is the way to do it. Because I don't think it's healthy going to a country where you're just going there for the woman. Like you're going to Thailand because you met a Thai woman, or you're going to the Philippines because you met a Filipino woman. Unless you've lived in the country before, unless that's your dream. Because if you're only going there because you're lonely and you want to meet a wife, my God, you can find yourself being bloody lonely when you get here. It's very easy to, if you end up in the wrong town or the wrong place and you don't make any friends. And you've got to remember, I had this when I was in Thailand. When you have an argument, you know, in a place like that with your girlfriend, she's got lots of people she can go to. She can go and moan to her cousins and her sisters. You can't really moan to anyone if there's no expats around there. You can try and moan to, you know, your local Filipinos and Thais, but they'll invariably be on her side. So you've got to be very careful what you say. And you can't really talk about things like that over there because it's all about losing face and things. So, I mean, it can be bloody lonely if you don't get it right. And I'm just saying, think about that. Be aware of that. You know, there is no pressure on you. You don't have to jump the whole thing into it. I mean, a lot of people, it would seem to me, they've been together like online, I'll say 3 years or something like that. And they're determined that this is the person for them, and their plan is to like to get over there and meet this person. And then they're going to settle down and get married, etc. Well, I hope it works out. And I'm sure it does for some people. I know it does for some people. And I'm happy for those people. But the trouble is, you will see these videos online, you know, about these wonderful long distance relationships and how wonderful they've worked out and how happy everyone is at the end. And you think, great. Good to them. But a lot of these videos are like, when they first met, they get out of the airport, they spent 6 months together or a year in. Don't see that many 3 or 4 months, 3 or 4 years down the line. How many of those actually last? Got no idea. But I bet a fair percentage of them fail. And how many videos do you see online where you see some guy, like particularly in Thailand or whatever, where he's like, I've lost everything because she took this and she did that and I thought she loved me and all the rest of it. I find it very hard to feel sorry for these guys because they've just dived straight into it. In my opinion, they didn't need to. At the end of the day, for a relationship to work, it's got to work for both of you. And if it does work for both of you, it's much more likely to last. It's not healthy if she is giving up her culture, living in a place she doesn't want to live, doesn't know anyone, feels isolated, has no life outside of you. That's not healthy. And vice versa. It's not healthy if you're living in a place you don't want to live because you're terrified of being alone again or you want someone to look after you when you're older. It doesn't have to be that way. There are enough fish in the sea for you to find the person that's right for you. You won't always find them. I haven't yet. By the fact, I'm not saying I'm complaining about who I'm with now or anything like that. The point is, I haven't been with someone for married for 40 years. So I obviously didn't meet that right person. You know what I mean? If that is the objective, that's the goal. I know a few people over here who it really seems like they have. They have met the right person. And been very happy, like together 19, 20 years. I know a few people on the channel who are convinced they've met the right person, and power to them. But I've seen so many people where it's all gone wrong, where they've come over and they've lost a lot of cash and things, I know a lot of people say in the comments, well, if you can afford to walk away from it, you can afford to walk away from it. Then don't worry about doing it, do it. Well, that's a way of looking at it. That's a way of looking at it. I'm just saying, the biggest mistake expats make is they come over here and they rush into things. Or they go to anywhere in Asia. I did a video a few days ago. Well, it was a party a few months ago. Put it up last week or whatever. And that was basically advice for most of the expats I spoke to. And it's good advice. Don't rush into anything. Don't commit to anything. Do your due diligence. And as I say, I am not in long distance relationships. If that's what works for you, fantastic. But it's not the same. I'm not going to say it's not a real relationship. Who is to say what a real relationship is? All I'm saying is, if the ultimate goal is to live together and marry, you have to be aware that the long distance relationship is not an accurate substitute for those years together. Okay, it will prepare you in some ways. You will get to know each other, but just be aware. Even if you have been online for 3 years talking, even if you've been online for 4 years or 5 years, even though you're both convinced that you're perfect for each other, don't jump in and do anything stupid. As I've said before, no one who gets married doesn't think it's going to last forever. My God, the average price of a wedding in the UK is like £50,000 or something. It might be even more than that. It was £50,000 when I looked a few years ago. And a lot of people can't afford that. So they save and they take loans and things. And they get divorced like 6 years later. So what I'm saying to you is, they obviously believed it was going to work. That's why they spent all the money on the wedding. Just because you think it's going to work doesn't mean it is going to work. Just because you want it to work doesn't mean it is going to work. So just take things slowly. Just calm down. Look at things. Listen to people. Look around, as I say, because this video, as I said at the beginning, isn't really aimed at experienced travellers. Not that we would breed apart or anything like that. It's just saying, if you've spent several years in different countries, you have an idea of, what to expect. The first time you move away from your home country can be a real shock to some people. Some people get very homesick. I've seen that a lot. And, when you're having arguments with your girlfriend and that, that homesickness can multiply. I mean, places like Patty, you get a lot of suicides because of situations people find themselves in. And I know it's different there with the bar girls and potential other things, but expat life can be very lonely at times. It's not for everybody. You need to try it for a few years to see if it's for you. Well, not even a few years. I mean, there's no thing. The point, you could try it first. Get used to it. Because that's the trouble, you see. When you get off the plane and you meet your long-distance relationship person, this new partner, it's all going to be a buzz. It's going to be exciting. You're going to be like in a haze, in a dream, and it's all going to be a new experience and that. But, just because it's a new experience and it's exciting, these same things 6 months down the line can be a bloody nightmare once an offer is worn off. So I'm not saying don't go with the 6 month high. Go with it, enjoy it. But set some standards, set some rules. It's like anything in life. It's like investments and things. Set out a plan. Promise yourself you're not going to do this until you do this. Don't let anyone talk you around. And I'm not saying she's a bad person, she's a scammer or anything like that. You're doing her a favour by planning it out, because you're planning for the long term. Because there's no benefit to her if the relationship goes tits up. We're not talking about a scammer here who's after the house or the money. The point is, this girl could love you to pieces. She could think you're fantastic when you're talking online. But when you're farting 10 times a night, and she thinks you're drinking too much or doing whatever your bad habits are, or you've had a few arguments, that can change. That's the reality. I mean, that's what makes these people who've been married 40, 50 years, happy marriages I'm talking about, that's what makes them special. The fact that they've been able to do that. I mean, they found the right person. But a lot of these marriages aren't happy. You know what I mean? A lot of people, just didn't get divorced because it was just, a certain generation, But anyway, I'm diverging the subject. All I'm saying is, be aware. We're all different, but in many ways we're all the same. And the reality is, you ask any expat, what the biggest mistake people make, they will invariably tell you they rush in too quickly. They overcommit. They meet someone, they get married, they build land, etc. Now, you will get some people, I'm sure I'll get some in the comments, who will say, buying land, etc. was the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, fine. I'm very happy for you. Getting married was the best thing that ever happened to you. Fine. I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying to you is, how long did it take to get married? And if you got married in the first few weeks and it worked for you, fine. But the point is, if you'd left it another year, would that have made a difference? And I'd suggest if it was the right person who you're with now, then it wouldn't have done. You know what I mean? You're still not together because you found the right person. But for every one of you that's found the right person and, had a fantastic life and built a house or run a successful business in the Philippines, I tell you, there are 5 or 6 that haven't, where it's all failed and they've gone back and they've lost money and they've left bitter and twisted. That's just life. And some people can't afford to lose things like that. The fact that you've come to this country because you're lonely and things aren't going well for you in your own country, the last thing you want to do is come over here, have a failed relationship and lose much and go back home being lonely again. You know what I mean? You want to make it work, so... I'm going to stop the video now because I think I've laboured the point. This isn't one of my best videos. I've struggled for my words today. But hopefully you get what I'm saying to you. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. Or maybe I am in a way. What I am humbly suggesting is, well, I've said it, don't rush into things. Just look around, accept the realities of relationships. If you want to find a Filipino woman, come to the Philippines, see what it's like living here, and then try and find a woman. I'm not saying you're definitely going to find her or whatever, but It's not too difficult here, but do it that way. You know, because if you're happy with where you're living and your lifestyle, then she's more likely to be happy with you. You're both happy, then the relationship's got a lot more chance of succeeding. But just don't jump ship like that. Don't just come, you know, in the airport, meet you long distance, get in your car. You know, it doesn't make much sense to me. If you're already in a long distance relationship, or if you are in a situation where you're unable to come to the Philippines for the next 4 or 5 years, you're finding it impossible to get a girlfriend in your home country, a long distance relationship is the only thing for you. Well, fine, do it. You know, hopefully you'll meet the right person. But just be careful because there are scams out there online. And even if you do meet the right person, even if you are in a long distance relationship for all these years, keep it in the back of your mind. You will not know this person to the same extent that you will when you're living with them until you've actually lived together, until you're actually in the country, until you're in each other's company constantly, or she comes to you. So be aware of that fact. Don't rush into anything. Anyway, I've said enough. Gone round in circles here. I think you get my message. As I say, I'm not trying to preach to anyone. It's just like last night I was out and I was hearing this story and it's the same old story and it's a sad story and then you get talking and it's just, you see people doing it all the time. Now I know it happens in home countries and things. I mean, it happens back in the UK that friends and that split up and things, but it's different when it's in a foreign country. You know, if you have a row with your parents in the you know, with your family in the UK, you go, can I speak? With your girlfriend or whatever, you can go and stay at your parents for a while. You can sleep on a friend's couch or whatever. You know, you might get back together after a few months. You might not. If you don't, you sell the house, you split it 50-50. You know, it's not like that when you're in another country. You know, you can't go and stay at parents. You've got to fly back. And if once you left the country, it can be hard for you to come back. The house isn't going to get split 50-50. You know, it's just complications after complications after complications. It's messier and it's lonelier and it's not a situation you want to get yourself in. There's no guarantees you won't get in that situation if you're cautious anyway. You know, that's just life, unfortunately. You've got to be in it to win it. But just try and keep things clean in the sense able to make a clean break. Don't overcommit too early, too soon, because you can lose a lot and it can be very painful and you see it a lot. Anyway, that was my bit. I hope you didn't find it too boring. I hope people didn't think I was trying to lecture them because that's not what I was doing. I know it really isn't, but anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button. Hopefully it sank in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be very grateful if you did. Trying to get those numbers up. Whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe, be lucky.